guys, how you doing? It's Ashwin here. Today we'll be familiarizing with some data types in C and Python, which will come in handy for your coding competitions. So without further delay, let's get started. Okay, first we'll try to learn some of the data types in C. You might know many of these from your syllabus learning and all. So I'm just going to just run through some of the stuff. And there are basically three types: primary, derived, and user defined. And you'll probably be using primary data types for your coding competitions. The chances that user defined data types might be asked is very low, unless and until object oriented programming is involved. Don't worry about that, we'll deal with those later. And let's go to the primary data types. You might be familiar with int, float, and char, which are the basic ones that we use. And these three data types will be the ones which you are using for your competitions also. But let's just familiarize with some of the other ones, just in case. You get to see shortened, unsigned int, long int. The main difference between all of these is that the range of values you can store in these variables. And you can see shortened can store minus 32,768 to 32,767. And unsigned shortened has 0 to 65535. And this changes for each data type. I'm not getting into detail about those. You might need to know these values only when you have to deal with a wide range of values in your problem. Don't worry about that. We'll discuss those while we actually deal with the coding problem. And then there's float. You have char, unsigned char, a double and long double. The probability that you'll be using all of these is very low. You will just use int, char, and float mostly. And now let's see how the syntax is for these things. Okay, this is just a base code that I made up to show you guys how to do these things. And I'm pretty sure everybody's already familiar with these, but let's just revise. Okay, here I'm making an integer variable named int and its value has been assigned as 3, and I'm printing it using the %d. Just so you know, %d, %f, %c, which you might have studied in your C programming courses, is actually called format specifiers. These are used to indicate what kind of a variable will be displayed in this part of the output. And you can assign the variable name that has to be displayed over here. So let's just run this. Okay, this shows that integer is equal to 3. Pretty simple code, nothing to worry about here. And let's see what will happen if I give 34. Pretty simple. Now I'll just show you a little bit of a trick. That is, we had seen some of the ranges of the values here. That is for, and let's check int. Okay, this is the final value that can be stored in the int variable. Now let's just copy this and paste it here. We don't need these commas. Okay, and this was the last value that could be possibly stored. 214, and it was displayed also. Now let's just try 8 and see what happens. You can see that I actually gave a positive value here, and yet we got a negative value on the display. And now let's just try 9. See, the value has changed. I gave a value 2147483,649, but I got a negative value, and that too it's ending in 7. And you can see that a few of the digits are actually similar, but don't worry about that. I'm giving this as a puzzle for you guys. Why don't you try the answer and keep it with you, and in the next video I'll tell you what is happening over here. Okay, now let's try out float. Float is actually a data type that is used to display decimal points, that is floating point integers. And let's see what happens here when we use float. Okay, I gave the value 14 to the float variable FLT, and I displayed it. And as you can see, even though I gave 14, I got 6 decimal places after this. This is mainly because float by default has 6 decimal places. Now let's try out 14.356. Yes, still it's showing 6 decimal places. And in case if you want to modify this and display only up to 2 decimal places, you can just write 0.2 here between the percentage and f, and just run this. And you can see I just got 2 decimal places. What happened here is that since I said 2 and I've already given 14.356, the compiler actually rounded it off to 2 decimal places. Now let's try out 14.353. and that was changed to 14.35. That is the basic rounding is happening here. Nothing complex is going on. Okay, now let's try out char. Char is the data type that is used to show letters and even numbers as characters or special characters. Now let's try this out. And you can see it was displayed, pretty simple thing. You can show ampersand special characters also with this. There's nothing wrong with that. Also, you can give numbers here. But when we display numbers as characters, such as ch is equal to 1, you cannot do the usual arithmetic operation of 1 plus 1 with this kind of char. That is the difference between char 1 and int 1. Okay, that's pretty much the basic data types in C. We'll be dealing with arrays, strings and all in the following videos. Now let's move on to Python. Python actually is very flexible with data types because we don't have to define anything initially, and that's actually making things easier for us. And the main data types that we'll use are string, int, float, maybe complex, and we can try list and tuple also. We'll deal with dict and set in following videos. Okay, you can see these are some of the base code that I wrote for you guys. Now let's try out this. Okay. Here I just assigned a value 3 to numInt variable, and I am displaying it here. It's a simple printing statement. Integer equal to will be displayed, and with the space, this value will also be displayed. And I'm printing the type of the variable numInt, and it's shown as class int here, and the integer was displayed in the above line. The thing is that in Python, you don't have to say what kind of a variable it's going to be. You can just pretty much assign the value and it will automatically assign what data type it is. And that is for int. Let's try out float. And you can see I just used the same syntax here and here. All I did was I gave an integer value there and a floating point value here, that is 5.45, and it actually identified what kind of data type it's needed for this variable. And when I printed the type of num float, what I got was type class float, and the value was also displayed, which is pretty much easy. The next thing is a little bit tricky. The thing is, in C, you might have handled characters and strings as different things. That is, string is actually an array of characters in C, but in Python, you just have string, and you don't have a specific character data type. So it's tricky to remember, but it's easy to understand. You don't have to, once you get this concept inside your head, won't have to remember many things. And it's easier to handle strings in Python also. And as you can see, I gave double quotes for character. In C, we had used single quotes for characters. And now let's try out something else. What if I give single quotes here? It's the same thing. The same output was given here for single quotes. And once again, let's just give double quotes. See, the same output was given, class string itself, for both single quotes and double quotes. The thing is, in Python, you can represent strings both in single quotes and double quotes. And also, if I change this to ABCD, it will be displayed as ABCD. So you won't have to worry about handling characters and strings as separate things. Once you get this concept inside your head, it's going to be very easy for you. You might also have dealt with complex numbers in mathematics, and you have a data type in Python for that, and let's see how this works. See, it is called a class complex. I gave the number as 3 plus 1j, and here usually in maths we might actually use I for the imaginary part, but here we use j in Python. And when I printed it, it was printed with brackets in order to show that it's actually one complex number, so that our input will be more beautiful. And when I printed the type of the variable comp, I got the class as complex. Now let's just see one more data type, that is the list. The reason why I'm showing list here is because unlike arrays in C, lists are actually very easy to use in Python, and you will see that in a few moments. See, I made a list of items, And the thing about list is that you can have many elements as you want, and all these elements can be of any data type. You can see here I used integer data types initially, and then I added a few strings, and I just used a single print statement for that list. And you can actually relate this to C and find that in C, in order to print an array, you will have to make a loop and everything, which is a tedious task. But in Python, you can just simply use the print statement. And when I am printing the type of this variable num list, you can see that class list is being given. And the fun thing about this is that one thing, you can have many data types as you want inside of this. Also, you can nest lists inside lists. I would say 1, 2, 3, sorry, 4, and see, without using a 2D array as in C, you can just simply do this by nesting one single list inside of this. And if you just copy this here, and let's add it as another element. See, it's pretty simple. You can have many lists inside lists as you want, which makes your task simpler. And these are pretty much the basic data types that we'll have to deal with in coding competitions. There are many others, arrays, tuples, and other things. We'll be dealing with those as we deal with more coding problems. So until next time, ciao.